Milledgeville, Georgia, 1976. 50 years before cameras could automatically read a license plate and search a database, two men checked into the Holiday Inn on the outskirts of town. Their names were Melvin Tate and Lewis Washington. They rented rooms 127 and 131. They came to Milledgeville to organize workers at one of the city's largest employers. What they didn't know was that before long, somebody would be watching. By 1976, Milledgeville was chasing industry. New plants meant jobs, tax revenue, and a future city leaders desperately wanted to build. But another movement was taking shape inside the workforce. Organizers with the Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union had come to Milledgeville. Among them was Melvin Tate. Their target was J.P. Stevens, a textile giant with a long and bitter history of fighting organized labor. Workers began meeting. Union cards began circulating. And much of the support was developing among Milledgeville's black workforce. At the same time, Mayor Robert Rice and local industrial leaders were working to convince companies that Milledgeville was the place to do business. One of those companies was Ream. To the people recruiting industry, a growing union campaign wasn't simply a disagreement inside a textile mill. It threatened the image of Milledgeville they were selling. And before long, somebody decided they needed to know exactly who was attending those meetings. The surveillance had begun. Every car noted, every name logged. The shadow of the Spy Case was beginning to fall over Milledgeville. What began as a labor dispute had become something much darker. A town caught between the promise of a future and the methods of the past. The story of the Milledgeville Spy Case was just beginning. That decision would turn a labor dispute into something much bigger. Shortly after a July 1976 meeting, Mayor Robert Rice contacted Milledgeville Police Chief Charles Osborne. Rice also approached the manager of the local Holiday Inn. A room was made available to the city, giving detectives a place from which they could quietly watch the organizers and the people meeting with them. Osborne selected two officers for the assignment, James D. Josie and William Donald Miller. Their instructions went beyond simply watching Mel Tate and the other organizers. They were told to identify the people seen with them, record their automobiles, write down their license plate numbers, compile the information into lists, and keep the operation quiet. Miller later recalled that Osborne instructed them not to discuss the surveillance with anyone, including other members of the police department or even their wives. In August 1976, the officers started watching the union meetings. Names began piling up. The police weren't the only people who would see those names. The watching continued. Month after month, Josie and Miller compiled names, automobiles, and license plate numbers connected to the union meetings. And when the organizers moved a meeting away from the Holiday Inn, the surveillance moved with them. March 15th, 1977, the officers watched a meeting at a local union hall. According to Miller's later account, they brought along a 16-year-old youth from the Youth Development Center. Josie staged what appeared to be a police stop, while Miller used the distraction to record the license plates of vehicles outside the meeting. Those plate numbers could then be checked. Names and addresses could be added. These weren't simply police intelligence files sitting inside the department. Osborne later deposited surveillance lists and envelopes with the mayor's secretary. Local industrial executives were notified, and copies were picked up. Employers could compare the information against their own personnel files and determine whether their workers' friends, or even their relatives had attended union meetings. What began as watching organizers had become something much larger, because now, simply showing up could put your name on somebody's list. When those lists were examined, another pattern became impossible to ignore. The list revealed more than names and license plates. They revealed who was driving the union campaign. Historical accounts of the Milledgeville campaign show that much of the support for organized labor was coming from black workers. At the original July meeting, plant manager Bill Wall reported that the vast majority of workers who had signed union cards were black. There were reasons. Organizer Robert Tim Brown described a workforce where many of the highest paying and supervisory jobs were held by whites. He estimated that the preferred first shift was approximately 80% white, while the third shift, the graveyard shift, was approximately 80% black. For many black workers, the fight over organized labor was connected to something larger than wages. It touched opportunity, advancement, working conditions, and a much longer struggle over who held power inside the workplace. That made Milledgeville's black community increasingly important to the organizing campaign. And soon, one of the most recognizable figures from America's civil rights movement would come to town. His name was James Orange. James Orange, a veteran of the movement, bringing a new dimension to the fight in Milledgeville. James Orange brought something different to the organizing campaign. His work didn't stop at the factory gate. Orange had worked with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and in Milledgeville, he became involved with issues reaching directly into the black community, including housing, voting rights, and food assistance. And that's where another name enters this story, Oscar Davis. Davis was a Milledgeville businessman and former brick mason. Years before he became an elected official, Davis was already active in the community. He was impressed with Orange's work and soon began assisting him. Davis then introduced Orange to Reverend E.D. Strickland, president of the local NAACP and chairman of the local SCLC affiliate. The union campaign was no longer simply reaching workers inside a textile mill, connecting with black civic leadership outside of it. And that put Oscar Davis directly into a fight that had already gotten the attention of Milledgeville's political and industrial establishment. Before long, Mayor Robert Rice would have something to say about Oscar Davis.